So this question is there a way for services to report unfair rent increases? Or is this something only the renter can do? So what's unfair for a rent increase? I think a lot of people have different answers for that question. But in terms of reporting it, this is part of how law, policy and reform all work together. Tell your local minister. Tell them what matters. Tell them how affordable it is for you and what not being able to afford to it really means for you. You can, of course, tell Tenants Victoria. Tell your support worker through VCOSS about what does the cost of living look like for you at this time. Sometimes renters would carry a lot of fear or embarrassment or shame of not being able to pay the rent. You know, going, geez, I can't give my kids enough food, or, you know, they want to go to the movies with their friends and they can't afford it because, you know, movies are like 15, 16 bucks now. You know, so it's really important that we do share those stories. In terms of what's unfair, I think it's important to recognise that more and more renters are challenging their rent increases. So in the previous financial year, there was about 5,000 requests, which was a dramatic jump. And then the next year, just the most recent financial year that's gone, about 7,500 requests for reports from Consumer Affairs to say, I think my landlord is asking too much. So we really want to make sure that when we talk about landlords and rental providers about what's fair, we open up that question of what is fair. It's a fairness formula. That's what Tenants Victoria is calling for, is a fairness formula around how rent increases are arrived, how they're determined, and what it means for both parties. So we would implore government and landlords, noting that there are a lot of landlords that are carrying a heavy weight. Too often we have landlord, tenant, and they fight each other in isolation. But we all know things through the RBA and other factors are significant that cause stress, and everyone's trying to find where they get the extra dollar and cents from. So in terms of reporting them, absolutely. If you've had a 60% rent increase, tell your story on Tenants Victoria website, tell your local MP, whoever you can that will listen. Please don't feel any shame around sharing that story about what's affordable for you. We all know that things are really expensive at the moment, so your story is valuable, and more importantly, you are valuable. Next question. Agents are now using apps. If notices are issued via these apps, would they be considered valid service if a renter has consented to email or text communication? Really good question, quite technical. So when we talk about service, it means that the law's considers that you've got the document. So when we get a notice to vacate, it's got to be given by hand, got to be given by registered post, or it can be given electronically if the person's consented. So if someone's signed up for an app, I'm going to imagine that somewhere in there there'll be some fine print that says, you agree to accept electronic consent via this app. What's probably more important is that people are not forced into apps. So particularly when we talk about rent payment methods, you've got to be given at least one free method of payment other than your own bank fees. And you also need to be able to pay your rent via electronic transfer. So with these apps, you don't have to sign up to them. So generally speaking, if you sign an agreement, if you sign, or they ask you to sign up, you don't have to. If you want to terminate using that app, look at the fine print, maybe seek some advice. In this situation, it's asked if the renter has consented to email or text communication. And so probably the most important thing around giving your permission about how that notice is given to you electronically is that you can qualify it. You can say, I only want SMS. I only want email. That's going to be the best way to make it really clear. And probably resolve a lot of the disputes that might follow around this. But if you're unsure or you think it's not clear whether you've agreed to accept the service via the app, then seek legal advice, and that might be something that gets decided in VCAT. At the moment, there's not a lot of decisions around that particular issue, and we want to make sure that those apps and platforms are being as fair as they can for all parties, for landlords and for renters. So hopefully you can be really clear about what your position is. For some people, I hate checking my personal emails. It is worthwhile recognising that if you've gone for a rental agreement and it's already got it filled in saying, yeah, you'll agree to accept it via email, you can actually withdraw that consent at any time. So, and ironically, you should do that in writing. You could even do it via email saying, I don't want to get email notices anymore. I'm happy to communicate back and forth, but I'm not happy to get notices to vacate or rent increases or entry notices via my email. There's just too much risk of missing it. So it's up to you to decide, but that's an option. Got another question here. How do you support a client where another tenant is refusing to pay the leaving tenant their bond? So this sounds like it's around when you've got a tenant transfer. So you might have tenants A, B, and C, and then C wants to go, and we're going to replace C with D. Normally what should happen is that no money is released from the bond. So we might have, let's just say it's a $1,000 bond, 333 for each of these people. When C leaves, C is going to pay D $330, and in exchange, C will put the name of D on that bond and substitute them, and so it ends up like that. In the circumstances where the person's refusing to pay that money, it's a bit of a standoff. And what we generally encourage people to do, noting that Tenants Victoria doesn't advise on inter-renter disputes generally, is to get a contract, make a contract between you saying that I'm going to do this, I'm going to pay you the money, and you're going to change the name over, and that's how it's going to work on this date. Don't move out until the money's gone across and the name on the bond has changed, because that's going to give you the best position of control to make sure that, and unless all that transaction information's happened, it won't be able to proceed. So we know that there are some people that will move in and out in different contexts. In a family violence context, it might be a little bit different, where it's really important just to get your name off the lease. So if you don't want to go through the family violence application process and there's a willingness to transfer that agreement, it might be the easiest thing to do. But the risk is you're going to lose out part of your bond, and we don't want to see victim survivors lose out any more money than they need to. There's enough stress going on in people's lives. So in most cases for family violence, it is best to use that family violence kit on the Tenants Victoria website. So if they're refusing to pay the money, it's probably not a good sign how things will go. But it's best to do an agreement preemptively, just privately between the parties. VCAT generally won't engage that as an enforcement, but it does mean that you've got contractual rights with respect to each other. So if you want more information about tenant transfers, you can see the Tenants Victoria page on tenant transfers, and there's a really nice infographic to explain what should happen. And that's a really good way just to make sure everyone's clear about their expectations and understanding. Last question here is, can community organisations contact Tenants Victoria directly? Yes, you can. Anyone that's from an organisation that's supporting a renter can contact us, and that includes rooming houses, caravan parks where they're a permanent resident, Part 4A dwellings, which kind of look like a bunch of sort of small houses all in what's zoned as a caravan park. Sometimes they're referred to as a Part 4A park, and also specialist disability accommodation. So absolutely, we really encourage all the organisations. We get funded to provide organisational advice. So if you want to call us every day for the next year, that's fine. We want to make sure that our clients, the people in our community that are renting, are getting the best quality advice and best support they can from us and from you guys.